Good evening, and welcome to Cozy Sleep Time. Before we begin tonight's story, take a quiet moment to settle in and get comfortable. Find a position where your body can fully relax, whether you're lying in bed, resting on a couch, or simply unwinding after a long day. Allow your shoulders to soften. Let your breathing slow down just a little. There is nowhere else you need to be, and nothing else you need to do. Here, on Cozy Sleep Time, we explore calm and gentle topics, stories designed to help the mind slow down and drift peacefully toward rest. Each story moves slowly, gently, allowing your thoughts to wander and your body to relax more and more. Our story tonight is about rainforests. As the story unfolds, you can simply listen, or you can allow your mind to drift. There is no need to stay focused. If your thoughts wander, that is perfectly natural. So take one more slow breath, get comfortable, and let the quiet story begin. A rainforest is a forest that receives a great deal of rain. That much is simple, but the word rainforest carries within it a whole world of meaning. For a forest to be considered a true rainforest, it must receive at least 60 to 80 inches of rainfall each year, and that rain must be spread fairly evenly across the months. Some rainforests receive well over 300 inches of rain in a year, which means that water is falling from the sky almost every single day, sometimes in soft drizzles that barely touch the leaves, and sometimes in heavy downpours that drum against the canopy like a steady heartbeat. The air in a rainforest is always moist, always warm, always thick with the scent of wet earth and growing things. You can feel it in your lungs, that heaviness, that soft weight of humidity that wraps around everything like a blanket. Rainforests are found near the equator, in a band that circles the middle of the earth. This is where the sun is strongest and the days are longest, where the warmth of the tropics fuels the constant cycle of evaporation and rainfall. The equator passes through South America, Africa, Southeast Asia, and the islands of the Pacific, and in each of these places, rainforests have risen up, dense and green and ancient. They have been growing here for millions of years, long before humans walked the earth, long before the continents settled into the shapes we know today. The oldest rainforests have survived ice ages and shifting climates, and they continue to stand, patient and enduring, as the rain falls and the sun rises and the seasons turn in their slow, endless circle. One of the most remarkable things about a rainforest is the way it is organized into layers, each one a different world stacked upon the others. The very top is called the emergent layer, where the tallest trees push up above the rest, reaching toward the sun. These trees can be 200 feet tall or more, with trunks so wide that several people holding hands could not reach around them. Their crowns spread out like umbrellas, catching the light that falls from above. Below the emergence is the canopy, a dense roof of leaves and branches that stretches across the forest like a living ceiling. The canopy is where most of the rainforest's life is found, because this is where the light is. Monkeys swing through the branches, birds call to one another, insects crawl and climb and fly. The canopy is so thick that it blocks nearly all the sunlight from reaching the forest floor, which means that below the canopy the world grows dim and still. Beneath the canopy lies the understory, a shadowy realm of young trees, tall shrubs, and broad-leaved plants that have adapted to life in low light. The leaves here are often large and dark, designed to capture every possible scrap of light that filters down through the gaps above. The air in the understory is still and humid, and the sounds are muffled, softened by the layers of leaves overhead. This is a place of quiet patience, where plants wait for years, sometimes decades, for a tree to fall and open a gap in the canopy, allowing light to pour in and giving them the chance to grow tall. At the very bottom is the forest floor, a dark and quiet place where very little grows. The floor is covered with a thin layer of fallen leaves, twigs, and fruit, all of which decompose very quickly in the warm, wet conditions. Decomposers like fungi, termites, and beetles work tirelessly, breaking down organic matter and returning its nutrients to the soil. Surprisingly, the soil of a rainforest is not very deep or rich. Most of the nutrients are stored in the living plants themselves, not in the ground. When a leaf falls or an animal dies, the nutrients are recycled almost immediately, taken up by the roots of trees and used again. This is why rainforests can grow so lush on soil that would be considered poor for farming. The forest does not store its wealth in the earth. It stores it in the green, growing things, in the endless cycle of life and death and rebirth. The rainfall in a rainforest follows a rhythm of its own. In many rainforests, the rain comes in the afternoon, almost like clockwork. The morning will be warm and bright, with the sun shining down through a hazy sky. As the day progresses, clouds begin to build, white and puffy at first, then darker and heavier as they rise. By mid-afternoon, the sky is filled with gray, and the rain begins to fall, sometimes gently, sometimes with a sudden roar. The rain washes the leaves clean and fills the air with the sound of water, hitting wood, hitting earth. It is a sound that never stops, a constant background hum that becomes part of the very fabric of the forest. The temperature in a rainforest changes very little throughout the year. In the tropics, there is no winter and no summer, only a wet season and a slightly less wet season. The average temperature hovers around 75 to 80 degrees Fahrenheit, day after day, month after month. The warmth is steady, reliable, unchanging. It is a warmth that wraps around you like a gentle hand, a warmth that encourages everything to grow, to stretch, to reach toward the light. Rainforests cover only about 6% of the Earth's land surface, yet they are home to more than half of the world's plant and animal species. This is a staggering thought, that such a small area can hold so much life. Every tree, every vine, every patch of moss is home to countless creatures, each one playing its part in the vast and intricate web of the forest. Ants march along branches in long, orderly lines. Frogs cling to leaves with their sticky toes. Butterflies drift through the air like living petals. The sheer abundance of life in a rainforest is almost impossible to comprehend, and yet it is there, thriving in the warmth and the wetness and the green. There is a rhythm to life in the rainforest that is slower and deeper than the rhythms of the world outside. Things grow slowly here, over many years. Trees take decades to reach their full height. Vines creep up trunks inch by inch. The forest changes, but it changes at its own pace, measured in generations and centuries rather than in days and weeks. To walk through a rainforest is to feel that slowness, to be reminded that the world does not always need to move quickly. Some things are better when they take their time. The rainforest is a place of water and light, of green and shadow, of constant growth and constant decay. It is a system of perfect balance, where every drop of rain and every ray of sun is used, is absorbed, is given back in some form. And in that balance, there is a deep and abiding peace. The trees do not rush, the rain does not stop. The forest goes on, as it has for millions of years, patient and green and full of life. Above the forest floor, 100 feet up, the canopy spreads out like a great green ocean. This is the upper surface of the rainforest, the place where the tops of the trees meet and mingle, forming a nearly continuous layer of leaves and branches. From above, the canopy looks like a rolling landscape of green, a vast and undulating carpet that stretches as far as the eye can see. From below, it is a ceiling, a roof that filters the light and holds the moisture and creates a world apart from the world beneath. The canopy is where most of the life in the rainforest is found. Scientists estimate that as much as 70 to 80% of the rainforest species live in this upper layer, in the treetops, far above the ground. The reason for this is simple. Light is the most precious resource in the rainforest, and the canopy is where the light is. The leaves of the canopy trees spread out to catch the sun, turning its energy into food through the quiet miracle of photosynthesis. And where there are leaves, there are insects that eat them. And where there are insects, there are birds and frogs and lizards that eat the insects. And where there are birds and frogs and lizards, there are larger animals that hunt them. The canopy is a whole ecosystem suspended in the air. The trees of the canopy are not like the trees we are used to seeing. They are tall and slender with smooth bark that helps water run off quickly. Their leaves are often thick and waxy, shaped to shed rain and resist the drying effects of the wind and sun. The branches reach out in all directions, forming platforms where mosses and ferns and orchids can take root. In the crotches of branches, where leaves collect in water pools, tiny gardens grow, complete with their own soil and their own miniature ecosystems. A single large tree in the canopy can be home to hundreds of different species of plants and animals, all living together in the branches. One of the most remarkable things about the canopy is the way it moves. The branches are not solid and fixed, but flexible and alive, swaying gently in the breeze. When the wind blows through the treetops, the whole canopy ripples like the surface of a lake. Leaves rustle and rub against one another, producing a soft, continuous sound that is sometimes compared to the sound of a distant river or the whisper of waves on a shore. The movement is constant, even on days when the air below is still. The canopy lives in the wind, and the wind keeps it always in motion. Living in the canopy requires special adaptations. Many of the animals that make their home in the treetops have long limbs and prehensile tails that help them move from branch to branch. Monkeys swing through the canopy with ease, their arms and legs working together in a graceful, fluid dance. Sloths move slowly, carefully, their long claws hooking around branches as they inch along. Tree frogs have sticky pads on their toes that allow them to cling to leaves, even when those leaves are wet and slippery. Flying squirrels and flying frogs have flaps of skin that let them glide from tree to tree, sailing through the air like tiny kites. Birds are among the most visible inhabitants of the canopy. Toucans with their large, colorful bills hop from branch to branch, plucking fruit with surprising delicacy. Parrots and macaws fly in pairs or small flocks, their bright feathers flashing against the green. Hummingbirds hover in front of flowers, their wings beating so fast that they are almost invisible. The calls of birds fill the canopy from early morning until dusk, a constant chorus of whistles, squawks, and songs. Each species has its own voice, its own rhythm, its own place in the symphony of the treetops. Insects are everywhere in the canopy, in numbers that are difficult to comprehend. Beetles crawl along branches, ants march in columns along trunks and vines. Butterflies drift through the air, their wings painted in patterns of blue and gold and red that seem almost too beautiful to be real. Moths flutter in the shadows, their wings disguised to look like leaves or bark. Bees and wasps build their nests in the branches, and their humming adds to the constant background music of the forest. There are insects that look like sticks, insects that look like leaves, insects that look like flowers. In the canopy, camouflage is a way of life. One of the most important residents of the canopy is the orchid. Orchids are epiphytes, which means they grow on the surface of other plants, using them for support but not for food. They attach themselves to the bark of trees and take their moisture and nutrients from the air and the rain that washes over them. Orchid roots are covered with a spongy material that soaks up water like a sponge, storing it for dry periods. Their flowers come in every color and shape, some tiny and delicate, others large and showy. In the canopy, orchids bloom in the dappled light, adding splashes of color to the green. Vines and lianas connect the canopy to the forest floor. These woody vines start their lives on the ground and climb up the trunks of trees, reaching for the light. Once they reach the canopy, they spread out across the branches, linking one tree to another. A single liana can be hundreds of feet long and can connect dozens of different trees, creating a network of pathways through the treetops. Monkeys and other animals use these lianas as highways, moving from tree to tree without ever having to descend to the ground. The canopy is also a place of flowering and fruiting. Many canopy trees produce flowers that are pollinated by bees, bats, or birds. Others produce fruits that attract animals, which eat the fruit and disperse the seeds. The timing of flowering and fruiting varies from species to species, so that there is almost always something blooming or ripening somewhere in the canopy. The scent of flowers drifts through the air, mixing with the earthy smell of leaves and the sweet perfume of ripe fruit. There is a stillness in the canopy that is hard to find elsewhere. Even with all the activity, all the movement and sound, there is a sense of calm that comes from being so high above the ground. The wind moves gently through the leaves. The sun filters down in patches of gold. The sounds of the forest below grow distant and faint. In the canopy, you are suspended between earth and sky, held up by branches that have been growing for decades, centuries. It is a quiet place, a peaceful place, a place where the world slows down and the only thing that matters is the soft rustle of leaves in the breeze. Beneath the canopy, the rainforest grows dim. The sunlight that is so bright and strong at the top of the trees is filtered and scattered by the time it reaches the lower levels, reduced to a greenish twilight that softens every edge and blurs every outline. This is the understory, a world of shadow and stillness, where the air is cooler and more humid than in the treetops above. The understory begins where the canopy ends, roughly 30 to 60 feet above the ground, and it extends all the way down to the forest floor. The plants that live in the understory have adapted to life in the low light. Their leaves are often very large, sometimes as broad as a person's outstretched arms, designed to capture as much of the filtered light as possible. Many of them are a deep, rich green, almost black in the dimness, because darker leaves can absorb more light than lighter ones. The plants grow slowly here, in the patient way of things that have learned to wait. They do not race toward the sun because the sun is far away and hidden behind layers of leaves. Instead, they stretch their leaves wide and still, and they take what light they can get. Young trees that will one day rise into the canopy start their lives in the understory. They grow slowly at first, putting their energy into building strong roots and sturdy trunks. They wait for a gap to open above them, for an old tree to fall or a branch to break, sending a shaft of sunlight down into the gloom. When that happens, the young tree will surge upward, growing as much as several feet in a single year, racing to claim its place in the canopy before the gap closes and the light disappears again. This cycle of waiting and rushing of patience and urgency, is one of the great rhythms of the rainforest. The understory is also home to shrubs and small trees, to ferns and palms, and the broad leaves of the heliconia and the ginger. These plants do not grow as tall as the canopy trees, but they are no less beautiful. Heliconia flowers hang from their stems like clusters of bright red and orange lanterns, attracting hummingbirds that hover in front of them to drink their nectar. Ferns unfurl their fronds in slow motion, each one a spiral of green that opens into a fan of delicate leaves. The leaves of the understory are often marked with patterns of lighter green or white, stripes and spots and veins that catch what little light there is. The sounds of the understory are different from the sounds of the canopy. The calls of birds are more distant here, filtered through the layers of leaves. The rustle of wind in the treetops becomes a soft whisper, a hush that is felt more than heard. In the understory, the loudest sounds are often the sounds of insects. Cicadas buzz in a steady drone that rises and falls like a slow wave. Beetles click and hum. The wings of butterflies make a soft, papery sound as they flutter through the air. And sometimes, in the quietest moments, you can hear the drip of water from leaf to leaf, a gentle percussion that marks the passage of time. Below the understory, at the very bottom of the rainforest, is the forest floor. This is the darkest and quietest part of the rainforest, a place where the light is so dim that it is difficult to see more than a few feet in any direction. The forest floor is not barren, but it is sparse. Very few plants can grow here because there is simply not enough light. Instead, the floor is covered with a layer of fallen leaves, twigs, flowers, and fruits, all of which have drifted down from the layers above. The fallen material on the forest floor does not stay there for long. In the warm, wet conditions of the rainforest, decomposition happens very quickly. Fungi send out threads of mycelium that spread through the leaf litter, breaking down the organic matter and absorbing its nutrients. Termites and beetles chew through wood and leaves, turning them into smaller and smaller pieces. Bacteria work at the microscopic level, completing the process of decay. Within a few weeks, a leaf that has fallen from the canopy has been completely broken down, and its nutrients return to the soil. The animals of the forest floor are mostly small and secretive. Agoutis, which look like large guinea pigs, scurry through the leaf litter in search of fallen fruit and nuts. Peccaries, small wild pigs, root through the soil with their snouts, grunting softly as they search for food. Armadillos dig in the earth with their powerful claws, looking for insects and worms. Tapirs, the largest land animals in the rainforest, move slowly and quietly along well-worn paths, their noses twitching as they sniff the air. Many of the creatures on the forest floor are active at night. Ocelots, small wildcats with beautiful spotted coats, pad silently through the darkness, their eyes glowing in the faint light. Pacas and other rodents emerge from their burrows to forage for food. Frogs call to one another in the dark, their voices rising in a chorus that fills the night air. The forest floor at night is a busy place, full of movement and sound, but it is a quiet kind of business, carried out in whispers and shadows. The forest floor is also where the largest trees have their roots. The roots of rainforest trees are often shallow, spreading out across the surface of the soil rather than digging deep into the earth. This is because the nutrients in the soil are concentrated near the surface, in the thin layer of decomposing organic matter. To anchor themselves in the shallow soil, many trees develop buttress roots, large, flat roots that spread out from the base of the trunk like the fins of a rocket. These buttresses can be 10 feet tall or more, and they help to support the enormous weight of the tree above. Walking through the forest floor, you often have to step around these great wooden walls, which rise up from the ground like the roots of a giant. The understory and the forest floor together form the lower world of the rainforest. It is a world of shadow and quiet, of patience and slow growth. It is a world where the light is soft and the air is still, where the sounds are muted and the pace of life is gentle. There is a peacefulness here that is hard to find anywhere else, a sense of being cradled in the quiet heart of the forest. The leaves fall, the fungi break them down, the roots absorb what they need, and the cycle begins again. It has been happening this way for millions of years, and it will continue for millions more in the steady, unhurried rhythm of the rainforest. The plants of the rainforest are unlike any others on Earth. In the warm, wet, dim conditions of the forest, they have developed an extraordinary range of shapes, sizes, and strategies for survival. Every leaf, every stem, every root is a solution to a problem, a response to the particular challenges of life in the rainforest. The result is a world of green that is endlessly varied and endlessly surprising. One of the most common adaptations among rainforest plants is the drip tip. Many leaves in the rainforest end in a long, thin point, like a narrow tail. This is the drip tip, and its purpose is to help water run off the leaf quickly. In a place where it rains almost every day, a leaf that held water on its surface would soon be covered with moss and algae, blocking the light it needs to survive. The drip tip allows water to bead up and flow off the leaf, keeping its surface clean and dry. It is a simple solution to a constant problem, and it appears on thousands of different species of plants throughout the rainforest. Another common adaptation is the way plants capture light. On the forest floor, where light is scarce, many plants have evolved large, broad leaves that spread out like umbrellas to catch every possible ray. Some of these leaves are so large that they could be used as shelter from the rain, but large leaves come with their own problems. They are heavy and they require a lot of energy to maintain. They are also more vulnerable to being eaten by insects and animals. So the plants of the understory must balance the need for light against the cost of growing and protecting their leaves. Many rainforest plants protect themselves with chemicals. Their leaves contain compounds that make them taste bitter or even toxic to herbivores. Some of these compounds are so powerful that they are used by indigenous peoples as medicines and poisons. The curare plant, for example, produces a toxin that can paralyze an animal in seconds. The cinchona tree produces quinine, which is used to treat malaria. The rainforest is a vast pharmacy, filled with plants that have developed complex chemical defenses over millions of years of evolution. Epiphytes are one of the most remarkable groups of plants in the rainforest. These are plants that grow on the surface of other plants, usually on the branches and trunks of trees. They are not parasites. They do not take food from the tree they grow on. They simply use the tree as a place to live, a platform from which to reach the light. Orchids, bromeliads, and many species of ferns and mosses are epiphytes. They cling to the bark of trees with their roots, collecting water and nutrients from the air and rain. Bromeliads are especially interesting. These plants have leaves that grow in a rosette, forming a cup in the center that collects water. In the rainforest, these cups can hold a surprisingly large amount of water, sometimes several gallons. And in this water, a whole miniature ecosystem develops. Mosquito larvae wriggle in the water, tiny frogs lay their eggs there, insects drink from it and fall into it and become food for the plants. A single bromeliad can be home to dozens of different species, all living in the water trapped in its leaves. Vines and lianas are another important group of rainforest plants. They start their lives on the forest floor and climb upward, using the trunks of trees for support. Some of them twist around the trunk in a tight spiral. Others send out tendrils that grip the bark. Still others grow straight up, leaning against the tree for support. By climbing toward the light, vines can reach the canopy without having to grow a thick, heavy trunk of their own. They save energy by using the tree as a ladder, and they can grow much faster than the trees they climb. Strangler figs have perhaps the most unusual strategy of all. These plants begin their lives as epiphytes, growing on the branches of a host tree. They send roots down the trunk of the host into the soil below. Over time, these roots grow thicker and stronger, wrapping around the host tree like a cage. The strangler fig's roots eventually become so thick that they surround the host tree completely, preventing it from growing. The fig grows larger and larger, and the host tree, unable to expand, eventually dies and rots away. What remains is a hollow fig tree, standing where the host tree once stood, its roots forming a lattice that holds the shape of the tree that died within it. Carnivorous plants have found a way to survive in the nutrient-poor soil of the rainforest by eating animals. Pitcher plants have leaves that are shaped like deep cups, filled with water and digestive enzymes. Insects are attracted by the color and scent of the pitchers, crawl inside, and cannot escape. They fall into the water and are slowly digested, providing the plant with the nutrients it cannot get from the soil. Sundews have leaves covered with sticky hairs that trap insects like flypaper. When an insect lands on a sundew leaf, it becomes stuck and the leaf slowly curls around it, beginning the process of digestion. The flowers of the rainforest are as varied as the plants themselves. Some are tiny and inconspicuous, pollinated by the wind or by small insects. Others are huge and showy, designed to attract specific pollinators. The Rafflesia, which grows in the rainforests of Southeast Asia, produces the largest flower in the world, up to 3 feet across. It smells like rotting meat, which attracts the carrion flies that pollinate it. The corpse flower, another rainforest plant, produces a similar smell for the same reason. But not all rainforest flowers are so strange. Many are beautiful in the most familiar way, with petals of pink and white and yellow and blue, and scents that drift through the forest like perfume. The plants of the rainforest have learned to live with one another in a complex web of relationships. Some trees depend on specific insects to pollinate their flowers. Others depend on specific animals to disperse their seeds. The Brazil nut tree, for example, relies on a single species of bee to pollinate its flowers, and on the agouti, a large rodent, to open its hard seed pods and bury the seeds. Without the bee and the agouti, the Brazil nut tree could not reproduce. These relationships have developed over millions of years, and they are so specific and so delicate that they can be broken by the slightest disruption. In the quiet of the rainforest, the plants go about their slow and steady work. They reach for the light. They spread their roots. They flower and fruit and drop their seeds. They grow in the crotches of trees and on the surface of leaves and in the dark, damp places where the sun never reaches. They are patient and persistent, and they have been doing this for so long that the forest itself is a living memory of all the solutions and strategies that have come before. Every leaf tells a story. Every root holds a history. And in the green hush of the rainforest, the plants continue their ancient work, growing in the warmth and the wetness and the slow, steady rhythm of life. The animals of the rainforest are as varied as the plants, and there are so many of them that scientists have not yet been able to count them all. New species are discovered every year, hidden in the leaves and the branches and the dark places of the forest floor. Each animal has found its own way to live in the crowded, competitive world of the rainforest, and each one plays a role in the great web of life that connects everything together. Monkeys are among the most visible animals of the rainforest. They live in the canopy, where they move through the branches with a grace that seems almost effortless. Spider monkeys have long, thin arms and legs, and a prehensile tail that acts like a fifth limb, allowing them to swing from branch to branch with remarkable speed. Howler monkeys are named for their loud calls, which can be heard for miles through the forest. They call in the early morning and late evening, their voices rising in a chorus that sounds like the wind blowing through a deep canyon. Capuchin monkeys are smaller and more curious, often traveling in large groups and making soft chattering sounds as they search for fruit and insects. Sloths move at a very different pace. These slow-moving mammals spend most of their lives hanging upside down from branches, moving so rarely and so carefully that algae sometimes grows on their fur, giving them a greenish tint that helps them blend in with the leaves. Sloths sleep for up to 15 hours a day, and when they are awake, they move slowly, deliberately, conserving energy. Their slow metabolism allows them to survive on a diet of leaves that would not provide enough energy for a more active animal. In the trees, a sloth is almost invisible, a lump of fur and algae that hangs in the branches like a part of the tree itself. Birds fill the rainforest with color and sound. Toucans are among the most recognizable, with their large, brightly colored bills that seem almost too big for their bodies. The bill is surprisingly light, made of keratin like a human fingernail, and it is used for reaching fruit on branches that are too thin to support the bird's weight. Macaws and parrots flash through the canopy in pairs and small flocks, their feathers painted in brilliant shades of blue, red, yellow, and green. They are intelligent and social birds, communicating with each other in a series of squawks and calls that echo through the trees. Hummingbirds are the smallest birds in the rainforest, and they are among the most remarkable. Their wings beat so fast that they produce a humming sound, and they can hover in place, fly backward, and even fly upside down. They feed on nectar from flowers, using their long, thin bills and even longer tongues to reach deep into the blossoms. In the process, they carry pollen from one flower to another, making them essential pollinators for many rainforest plants. A hummingbird's heart beats up to 1,200 times per minute, and it must eat constantly to keep up with its incredible energy demands. The rainforest floor is home to animals that are rarely seen, but always present. Jaguars are the largest predators in the rainforest, powerful cats with spotted coats that help them disappear into the dappled light of the forest. They hunt at night, moving silently through the trees and along the ground, stalking deer, peccaries, and capybaras. Despite their size and strength, jaguars are elusive animals, and they are more often heard than seen, their deep coughs and grunts echoing through the darkness. Tapirs are among the largest herbivores in the rainforest. They have short, sturdy legs and a flexible snout that they use to grasp leaves and fruits. They are shy and gentle animals, spending most of their time near water, where they can escape from predators by submerging themselves. A tapir's body is shaped like a large rounded barrel, and its coloring provides excellent camouflage in the dim light of the forest. At night, tapirs follow well-worn paths through the understory, their noses twitching as they search for food. Peccaries travel in herds, rooting through the leaf litter for roots, tubers, and fallen fruit. They make soft grunting sounds as they move, staying in constant contact with one another. A herd of peccaries can be surprisingly loud, crashing through the underbrush like a small stampede, but they are also wary, and at the first sign of danger, they will vanish into the forest, leaving only the sound of retreating footsteps. Amphibians and reptiles are abundant in the rainforest. Tree frogs come in a dazzling variety of colors, from bright green to electric blue to deep red. Many of them are tiny, small enough to sit on the tip of a finger. Their calls fill the night air, a chorus of chirps and trills and whistles that rises and falls like a musical tide. Poison dart frogs are among the most colorful creatures in the rainforest, their bodies painted in warning colors that tell predators they are toxic. The poison on the skin of a single golden poison dart frog could kill 10 grown men, but the frogs themselves are gentle and shy, carrying their tadpoles on their backs to pools of water and bromeliads. Snakes move through the rainforest in ways that are almost invisible. Green tree pythons and emerald tree boas coil around branches, their green scales matching the leaves around them. They wait in patient stillness for a bird or a small mammal to pass within reach, then strike with incredible speed. On the ground, fer-de-lances and bushmasters lie hidden in the leaf litter, their patterned scales blending perfectly with the shadows. Snakes are not common in the sense of being seen often. They are secretive and quiet, and most of them are far more afraid of humans than humans are of them. Insects are everywhere in the rainforest, in numbers that are difficult to comprehend. Leafcutter ants march in long, orderly columns, carrying pieces of leaves that are many times their own size. They do not eat the leaves. They carry them underground to their nests, where they use them to grow a fungus that they eat. This system of farming is one of the most complex behaviors found in any insect. Butterflies drift through the air in flashes of color, and moths flutter in the shadows with wings that look like bark or dead leaves. Stick insects look exactly like twigs, and walking leaves look exactly like leaves. In the rainforest, the line between animal and plant is sometimes very thin. Every animal in the rainforest has its place. The monkeys scatter seeds in their droppings, helping to plant the next generation of trees. The insects pollinate the flowers and break down the dead material on the forest floor. The predators keep the populations of prey animals in check, preventing any one species from becoming too numerous. It is a system of perfect balance, in which every creature, from the largest jaguar to the smallest ant, plays a necessary part. And in the quiet of the forest, these animals go about their lives in the same way they have for thousands of generations, following the rhythms of the day and the night, the rain and the sun, the endless cycle of life in the rainforest. The Amazon rainforest is the largest rainforest on Earth, a vast expanse of green that covers more than 2 million square miles. It stretches across 9 countries in South America, including Brazil, Peru, Colombia, Venezuela, Ecuador, Bolivia, Guyana, Suriname, and French Guiana. To fly over the Amazon is to see an ocean of trees, a carpet of green that extends to every horizon, broken only by the winding ribbons of rivers that snake through the forest like silver serpents. The sheer size of the Amazon is difficult to comprehend. It is more than half the size of the United States, and it contains more than half of all the rainforest left on the planet. The Amazon River runs through the heart of this forest, and it is the largest river in the world by volume of water. It carries more water than the next 7 largest rivers combined. The river begins high in the Andes Mountains of Peru as a small stream fed by melting snow, and it grows as it flows eastward across the continent, gathering water from more than 1,000 tributaries. By the time it reaches the Atlantic Ocean, The Amazon is so wide that from its banks you cannot see the opposite shore. The river is so powerful that it pushes fresh water hundreds of miles out into the ocean, and ships can sail upriver for more than 2,000 miles from the sea. The Amazon is home to an extraordinary number of species. Scientists estimate that 1 in 10 of all known species on Earth live in the Amazon rainforest. There are more than 40,000 species of plants, 16,000 species of trees, and 3,000 species of fish. There are more than 1,300 species of birds, 400 species of mammals, and 400 species of reptiles. And these are only the ones that have been discovered. New species are found every year, and scientists believe that there may be millions more that have not yet been identified. The Amazon has been inhabited by humans for at least 11,000 years. When European explorers first arrived in the 16th century, they found a forest that was already shaped by the people who lived there. Indigenous peoples had cleared areas for farming, planted fruit trees, and created patches of forest that were rich in useful plants. They had built settlements along the rivers and trails through the forest that connected one village to another. The Amazon was not a pristine wilderness untouched by human hands. It was a managed landscape, cultivated and cared for by the people who called it home. Today, more than 400 indigenous groups live in the Amazon, some of them with little or no contact with the outside world. These groups speak more than 300 different languages and have their own cultures, traditions, and ways of living in the forest. They know the plants and animals of the Amazon better than any scientist. They know which trees provide the best wood for building, which plants can cure a fever, which fruits are safe to eat and which are poisonous. Their knowledge of the rainforest has been passed down through generations, accumulated over thousands of years of living in close relationship with the forest. The Amazon is sometimes called the lungs of the earth because of the oxygen its trees produce. But this is not entirely accurate. The Amazon does produce a great deal of oxygen, but it also consumes a great deal through the process of respiration. The net contribution of the Amazon to the world's oxygen supply is relatively small. What the Amazon does do, far more importantly, is store carbon. The trees and plants of the Amazon hold an enormous amount of carbon, carbon that would otherwise be in the atmosphere as carbon dioxide, trapping heat and warming the planet. The Amazon is a giant carbon sink, one of the most important on Earth. The rainfall in the Amazon is generated largely by the forest itself. The trees release water vapor into the air through their leaves, a process called transpiration. This water vapor rises, cools, and forms clouds, which then release rain back onto the forest. About half of the rain that falls in the Amazon comes from the forest itself. The other half comes from the Atlantic Ocean, carried inland by the trade winds. This self-generating cycle of rainfall is one of the reasons the Amazon has remained wet and lush for so many millions of years. The Amazon is also home to some of the most unusual and remarkable creatures on Earth. The pink river dolphin lives in the waters of the Amazon and its tributaries, its pink color becoming more pronounced as it ages. These dolphins are gentle and curious, and they are surrounded by legend among the people who live along the river. The electric eel can generate a shock of up to 600 volts, enough to stun a person or a large animal. The giant river otter can grow to be 6 feet long, and it hunts fish in the rivers with speed and grace. The anaconda, the heaviest snake in the world, lives in the swamps and slow-moving waters of the Amazon, where it waits in patient stillness for its prey. The trees of the Amazon are among the tallest and oldest in the world. The kapok tree can grow to more than 200 feet, its trunk supported by enormous buttress roots that spread out across the forest floor. The Brazil nut tree can live for 1,000 years or more, producing nuts that are harvested by people throughout the region. The rubber tree, from which natural rubber is made, grows wild in the Amazon, and indigenous peoples have used its sap for centuries to make waterproof containers and clothing. The Amazon is changing. Parts of the forest have been cleared for farming, ranching, and logging. Roads have been built through the forest, opening areas that were once difficult to reach. Fires have burned through the dry season, destroying large areas of trees. The Amazon is not the same forest it was 100 years ago, or even 50 years ago. But despite these changes, the Amazon remains vast, powerful, and full of life. The forest still stretches across the continent, still holds its ancient secrets, still rises and falls with the rhythm of the rain. There's something deeply peaceful about the Amazon. The river flows at its own pace, slow and steady and unstoppable. The trees reach toward the sky, their leaves catching the light and the rain. The animals move through the forest, following paths that have been worn into the earth by generations of footsteps. The Amazon is a place of enormous power and enormous gentleness, a place where life exists in all its forms, and the forest itself seems to breathe in and out in the long and patient rhythm of the earth. When most people think of rainforests, they think of the hot, humid jungles of the tropics. But there is another kind of rainforest, one that grows in cooler climates along the coasts of continents where the air is moist and the rain falls in steady, gentle sheets. These are the temperate rainforests, and they are just as beautiful, just as rich in life, and just as deserving of our attention as their tropical cousins. Tropical rainforests grow near the equator, where the temperature is warm year-round, and the days are always about 12 hours long. There is no winter and no summer in the tropical rainforest, only a wet season and a dry season, and even the dry season is still quite wet. The temperature in a tropical rainforest rarely drops below 68 degrees Fahrenheit or rises above 93 degrees. It is always warm, always humid, always green. The trees grow year-round, never losing their leaves all at once, so the forest is always in full leaf. Temperate rainforests grow in cooler parts of the world, along the coasts of continents where ocean currents bring moist air that rises and falls as rain. The largest temperate rainforests are found along the Pacific coast of North America, from Alaska down through British Columbia and into the Pacific Northwest of the United States. There are also temperate rainforests in southern Chile, New Zealand, Tasmania, and parts of Europe and Asia. These forests receive just as much rain as tropical rainforests, often more than 100 inches per year, but the temperatures are much cooler and the seasons are more defined. In a temperate rainforest, the seasons bring change. Spring comes slowly, with the first green shoots pushing up through the damp soil and the trees beginning to bud. Summer is mild and misty, with long gray days and the constant sound of rain falling through the leaves. Autumn brings a blaze of color as the leaves of the deciduous trees turn gold and orange and red before falling to the forest floor. Winter is cold and wet, with snow sometimes falling on the higher slopes, but the evergreens keep their needles and the forest remains green. The trees of the temperate rainforest are different from those of the tropics. In the tropical rainforest, the trees are mostly broadleaf evergreens with large, flat leaves that they keep year-round. In the temperate rainforest, the trees are often conifers, such as spruce, hemlock, cedar, and Douglas fir. These trees have needles instead of leaves, and their shape is conical, designed to shed snow and catch the low-angle light of northern latitudes. The trees of the temperate rainforest can live for hundreds, sometimes thousands of years. The oldest trees in the world, the giant sequoias and redwoods, grow in temperate rainforests, and they are among the largest living things on Earth. Mosses and ferns cover the floor of the temperate rainforest in a thick, soft carpet. In the cool, damp conditions, moss grows on almost every surface, on the trunks of trees, on rocks, on fallen logs, on the forest floor itself. The moss holds moisture like a sponge, keeping the forest damp even during dry spells. Ferns unfurl their fronds in the dappled light, their green so bright and fresh that it seems to glow. Lichens hang from the branches in long gray strands, giving the forest an ancient, enchanted feel. The understory of the temperate rainforest is more open than in the tropics. Because less light reaches the forest floor in the tropics, the understory there can be quite dense with plants that have adapted to low light. In the temperate rainforest, there is more light on the forest floor, especially in the winter when the deciduous trees have lost their leaves. The understory is filled with shrubs like salal, huckleberry, and Oregon grape, and with wildflowers that bloom in the spring before the canopy closes overhead. The animals of the temperate rainforest are different as well. There are no monkeys or toucans or jaguars. Instead, the temperate rainforest is home to animals like the black bear, the Roosevelt elk, the gray wolf, and the bald eagle. Salmon swim up the rivers that flow through the forest, bringing nutrients from the ocean that feed the trees and the animals. The bears catch the salmon in their mouths and carry them into the forest, where the remains of the fish fertilize the soil. This connection between the ocean and the forest is one of the most important relationships in the temperate rainforest. Salamanders and newts live in the damp places of the temperate rainforest, under logs and rocks, and in the soft, wet moss. The Pacific giant salamander can grow to over a foot long, and it hunts in the streams and pools of the forest. Banana slugs, bright yellow and surprisingly large, crawl across the forest floor, eating fallen leaves and mushroom caps. They are one of the most characteristic animals of the Pacific Northwest temperate rainforest, their bright bodies standing out against the dark earth. The temperate rainforest has its own kind of beauty, different from the lush, layered richness of the tropics. Here the beauty is in the soft light that filters through the mist, in the deep green of the moss that covers everything, in the sound of rain falling on the leaves of the big leaf maple and the salal. It is a quieter, more subtle beauty, one that reveals itself slowly over time. The temperate rainforest does not overwhelm you with its abundance, as the tropical rainforest does. Instead, it wraps around you, gentle and patient, inviting you to slow down and pay attention. Both kinds of rainforest, tropical and temperate, depend on rain. Both are shaped by water, by the constant cycling of moisture from the earth to the sky and back again. Both are places of enormous biological richness, home to species that exist nowhere else. And both are fragile, easily disturbed, easily damaged by the actions of humans. The rainforests of the world, whether they grow in the heat of the tropics or the cool mists of the coast, are among the most precious ecosystems on Earth. They are places of quiet and wonder, of slow growth and steady change, of life in all its forms, flourishing in the rain. Water is the lifeblood of the rainforest. It falls from the sky, flows through the forest, and rises back into the air in an endless cycle that has been turning for millions of years. The rivers of the rainforest are not just bodies of water. They are highways, habitats, and sources of life for nearly every creature in the forest. To understand the rainforest, you must understand its water, the way it moves and shapes and sustains everything around it. The rain that falls on the rainforest comes from the ocean. Warm air rises from the surface of the tropical seas, carrying water vapor with it. As the air rises, it cools, and the water vapor condenses into clouds. These clouds are carried by the wind over the land, where they release their moisture as rain. But this is only the beginning. When the rain falls on the forest, much of it is intercepted by the leaves of the canopy. The water collects on the leaves, drips from one leaf to another, and eventually makes its way to the ground, but it does so slowly, taking its time. The canopy acts like a giant sponge, holding water and releasing it gradually. Some of the water evaporates from the leaves back into the air, returning to the atmosphere without ever touching the ground. This process, called interception, means that the forest floor receives much less water than the total amount of rain that falls. It also means that the water that does reach the ground arrives in a slow, steady trickle rather than a sudden flood. The rainforest is designed to hold water, to slow it down, to make the most of every drop. On the forest floor, the water soaks into the soil, which is loose and porous, full of roots and burrows and the tunnels of insects. The water seeps downward, feeding the underground streams and springs that flow beneath the forest. Some of it is taken up by the roots of trees and plants, drawn up through the trunk and branches and leaves, where it is released back into the air through transpiration. A single large tree can release hundreds of gallons of water into the atmosphere in a single day. The forest is constantly breathing water, drawing it up from the soil and releasing it into the air. The rivers of the rainforest begin as small streams, trickling through the forest, clear and cold. They grow as they are joined by other streams, and they flow through the forest in wide, lazy curves, their waters stained brown by the tannins from decaying leaves. These are blackwater rivers, named for the dark, tea-colored water that flows through them. The Rio Negro in the Amazon is the largest blackwater river in the world, and its waters are so dark that they look almost black against the pale sand of its banks. Other rivers in the rainforest carry water that is milky or muddy, colored by the sediment they carry from the mountains. These are whitewater rivers, and they are rich in nutrients that are washed down from the Andes and other mountain ranges. The floodplains of these rivers are some of the most fertile land in the rainforest. Every year, when the rivers rise, they flood the surrounding forest, depositing a layer of fresh sediment that renews the soil. The floodplain forest, called varzea, is a dynamic and productive ecosystem where trees and animals have adapted to a life that is partly underwater for months at a time. During the wet season, the rivers swell, rising many feet above their dry season levels. The floodwaters spread out across the forest, covering the land in a sheet of brown water that can extend for miles in every direction. Fish swim among the trunks of trees, and the rivers become a network of waterways that connect the entire forest. During this time, people travel by canoe through the forest, paddling between the trees, as if through a submerged orchard. The floodplain becomes a shallow sea, and the forest becomes an archipelago of treetops. When the floodwaters recede, they leave behind a layer of rich silt that nourishes the soil. The fish that swam among the trees during the flood season retreat to the rivers and streams, but they leave behind eggs and young that will grow in the temporary pools and ponds left by the receding water. The flood cycle is a pulse that drives the entire ecosystem, a yearly rhythm of rising and falling water that shapes the lives of every creature in the floodplain. The rivers of the rainforest are home to an extraordinary variety of fish. There are piranhas with their sharp teeth, catfish that can grow to be hundreds of pounds, and the arapaima, one of the largest freshwater fish in the world, which can reach lengths of more than 10 feet. There are fish that eat fruit, fish that eat leaves, fish that eat other fish, and fish that eat the insects that fall from the trees. Some fish live their entire lives in the rivers. Others migrate from the rivers into the floodplain during the wet season and back to the rivers when the waters recede. Caimans, relatives of alligators and crocodiles, lie motionless in the shallow waters, their eyes and nostrils just above the surface. They are patient hunters, waiting for a fish or a bird or a small mammal to come within reach. Turtles bask on logs and rocks, slipping into the water at the first sign of danger. River dolphins swim through the murky waters, using echolocation to find their way and to hunt for fish. The rivers of the rainforest are alive with movement, with creatures that have adapted to a life in the water. The water cycle in the rainforest is a closed loop. The rain falls, the forest absorbs it, the trees release it, and the water returns to the sky to fall again as rain. The rainforest generates much of its own rainfall, creating a climate that sustains itself. This is why deforestation can have such a profound effect on rainfall. When the trees are removed, the water cycle is broken. The land becomes drier, the rain falls less often, and the forest that remains becomes more vulnerable to drought and fire. The water cycle of the rainforest is a delicate system, and it depends on the forest itself to keep it turning. Water moves through the rainforest in ways that are visible and invisible, fast and slow, powerful and gentle. It falls as rain, flows as rivers, rises as vapor, and falls again. It is the constant that connects everything, the thread that runs through the life of the forest. And in the quiet of the rainforest, you can hear it everywhere, in the patter of rain on leaves, in the gurgle of a stream, in the drip of water from a leaf, in the great slow pulse of the river as it makes its way to the sea. The rainforest is never truly silent. Even in the deepest, darkest part of the night, there is sound. It may be soft, barely audible, but it is always there, a constant background of noise that is as much a part of the forest as the trees themselves. The sounds of the rainforest are a symphony, one that plays on, day and night, through sun and rain and wind, without pause and without end. The most constant sound in the rainforest is the sound of insects. It rises and falls like a great slow wave, a buzz and hum and whine that fills the air. Cicadas are the loudest of the insects, their calls so loud and so persistent that they can drown out almost everything else. The male cicada produces its sound by vibrating membranes on its body, and the result is a high-pitched drone that pulses through the forest like a living current. During the hottest part of the day, the cicadas are at their loudest, their calls merging into a single shimmering wall of sound. Crickets and katydids take over when the sun goes down. Their chirps and trills are softer than the calls of the cicadas, more musical, with a rhythm that is soothing and repetitive. Each species of cricket has its own song, its own pattern of chirps, and the night air is filled with the overlapping rhythms of dozens of different species singing at once. The sound is like a gentle lullaby, a soft chorus that rocks the forest through the dark hours. Frogs add their voices to the night chorus. Some frogs make a sound like a bird's whistle, clear and high. Others make a sound like a snore, low and rumbling. Still others bark like small dogs or croak like the creaking of a rusty hinge. The tree frogs that live in the canopy call from the leaves high above, their voices floating down through the layers of the forest like tiny bells. The big bullfrogs that live in the ponds and streams call in deep, resonant tones that carry for long distances through the still night air. Birds are the most musical inhabitants of the rainforest. In the early morning, before the sun has risen, the birds begin to sing. The first calls are tentative, a few notes here and there, as if the birds are warming up their voices. Then more join in, and more, until the forest is filled with a chorus of songs that grows louder and more complex as the light increases. Each species has its own song, its own call, its own way of communicating. Some birds sing in long, complex melodies. Others repeat the same simple phrase over and over. Some mimic the sounds of other birds, weaving them into their own songs. The howler monkey has one of the most distinctive calls in the rainforest. Early in the morning and late in the afternoon, the howler monkeys begin their chorus. The sound starts low, a rumbling growl that builds in intensity. It rises into a deep, resonant roar that carries for miles through the forest. The male howler monkeys have a specialized bone in their throat that amplifies their calls, allowing them to be heard from a distance of 3 miles or more. The sound of howler monkeys calling is one of the most powerful and unforgettable sounds in the natural world. It is a sound that seems to come from the forest itself, from the deep, ancient heart of the trees. The rain makes its own music. A light rain falling on the canopy produces a soft, pattering sound, like the tapping of many tiny fingers on the leaves. As the rain increases, the sound changes, becoming a steady drumming, a rhythm that is constant and hypnotic. When the rain is heavy, it roars, drowning out all other sounds, filling the world with the sound of water falling through leaves and hitting the ground. The rain on the rainforest is not just a sound. It is an experience, a feeling, a presence that wraps around you and fills your senses. Thunder rolls through the rainforest during the storms that come in the afternoon. It starts as a low rumble in the distance, a sound so deep that you can feel it in your chest. It grows louder as the storm approaches, until it becomes a series of sharp cracks and long, rolling booms that shake the air. The thunder mingles with the sound of the rain, creating a symphony of power and sound that is both frightening and beautiful, a reminder of the forces that shape the world. Wind moves through the rainforest in waves. When the wind blows through the canopy, the leaves rustle and whisper, creating a sound like the surf on a distant shore. The sound travels down through the layers of the forest, growing softer and softer, until it reaches the forest floor as a gentle sigh. The wind in the rainforest is a living thing, a breath that moves through the trees and sets the leaves in motion, creating a sound that is endlessly varied and endlessly calming. Water flowing over rocks in a stream makes a gentle, gurgling sound that is one of the most soothing in the forest. The water moves around stones and over fallen logs, creating small waterfalls and eddies that produce a constant, bubbling music. In some parts of the rainforest, the streams are so numerous and so close together that the sound of flowing water is everywhere, a soft background hum that never stops. Even the insects that work on the forest floor make sound. Leafcutter ants marching in their columns produce a rustling sound, the sound of many tiny feet moving across the leaf litter. Beetles tunneling through wood make a soft, scraping sound. Butterflies landing on leaves make a sound like a single, delicate note. The rainforest is full of sounds that are too quiet to hear unless you are still and patient, but they are there all the time, adding their voices to the great chorus. At night, the sounds of the rainforest change. The diurnal birds fall silent, and the nocturnal creatures take their place. Owls call in the darkness, their hoots echoing through the trees. Bats flutter through the air, their wings making a soft, leathery sound. The night sounds are softer, more mysterious, more full of hidden meaning. They are the sounds of a world that operates in darkness, a world of shadows and whispers and secret movements. The sounds of the rainforest create a sense of being held, of being surrounded by life. They are constant and changing, predictable and surprising, familiar and strange. They wrap around you like a blanket, filling the air with their presence. In the rainforest, you are never alone. The sounds of the forest are always with you, a living, breathing symphony that plays on, through the day and through the night, through the rain and through the sun, in the eternal rhythm of the natural world. Biodiversity is the word scientists use to describe the variety of life on Earth. It includes every living thing, from the tallest tree to the smallest microbe, and it encompasses the genetic differences within species, the variety of species themselves, and the different ecosystems they form. Nowhere on Earth is biodiversity more concentrated, more visible, or more spectacular than in the rainforest. Rainforests cover only about 6% of the Earth's land surface, yet they are home to more than half of all known species of plants and animals. This is a staggering imbalance, a concentration of life that has no equal anywhere else on the planet. In a single square mile of rainforest, you can find more species of trees than exist in all of North America. You can find more species of birds than in all of Europe. The sheer density of life in the rainforest is almost impossible to comprehend, and yet it is there, thriving in the warmth and the wetness. The reasons for this extraordinary biodiversity are complex, but they begin with the climate. The warm, wet conditions of the rainforest allow life to flourish year-round. There is no winter to slow down growth, no dry season to force plants and animals into dormancy. The constant warmth and moisture mean that plants can grow and reproduce continuously, providing a steady supply of food for herbivores, which in turn support predators. The energy that flows through the rainforest ecosystem is enormous, and it supports an enormous number of species. The age of the rainforest also contributes to its biodiversity. Many rainforests have existed for tens of millions of years, providing a long, stable period during which species could evolve and diversify. Unlike parts of the world that were covered by glaciers during the ice ages, the tropical rainforests remained warm and wet, serving as refuges where species could survive and continue to evolve. The great age of the rainforests means that evolution has had more time to experiment, to produce new forms of life, to fill every available niche. In the rainforest, life has found a way to occupy every possible space. There are species that live in the canopy, in the understory, on the forest floor, in the soil, in the rivers, in the temporary pools of water that collect in bromeliads, in the hollow trunks of trees, in the tunnels dug by ants and termites. Every square inch of the rainforest is home to something. The trees themselves are like islands, each one supporting a community of plants and animals that live on its bark, in its branches, among its roots. The canopy is the richest layer of the rainforest in terms of biodiversity. The leaves, flowers, and fruits of the canopy trees provide food for an extraordinary variety of insects, birds, and mammals. Epiphytes grow on the branches, creating their own miniature ecosystems. The water that collects in the leaves of bromeliads becomes a habitat for frogs and insects. The canopy is a world within a world, a city in the treetops where millions of species live out their lives without ever touching the ground. The soil of the rainforest is home to an invisible world of biodiversity. Bacteria, fungi, and other microorganisms break down organic matter, recycling nutrients and making them available to plants. The number of microorganisms in a single handful of rainforest soil is greater than the number of people on Earth. These tiny creatures are the foundation of the rainforest ecosystem. Without them, the leaves would not decompose, the nutrients would not be recycled, and the forest could not sustain its lush growth. The rivers and streams of the rainforest are also rich in biodiversity. There are fish that eat fruit, fish that eat leaves, fish that eat insects, and fish that eat other fish. There are dolphins that swim in the rivers, turtles that bask on the banks, caimans that lurk in the shallows. The aquatic insects of the rainforest are incredibly diverse, with thousands of species of dragonflies, mayflies, caddisflies, and beetles living out their lives in the water. The rivers are highways of life, connecting the different parts of the forest and allowing species to move and mix. One of the most remarkable aspects of rainforest biodiversity is the number of species that have very small ranges. Many species of rainforest plants and animals are found only in a single valley, on a single mountain, or even on a single hillside. These species are called endemics, and they are extremely vulnerable to extinction. If their small habitat is destroyed, they have nowhere else to go. The patchwork of different habitats within the rainforest, created by differences in soil, rainfall, elevation, and history, has allowed many species to evolve in isolation, becoming uniquely adapted to their particular corner of the forest. Species in the rainforest are connected to each other in ways that are often surprising. A tree may depend on a single species of bee for pollination. The bee may depend on a single species of orchid for nectar. The orchid may depend on a single species of fungus for the nutrients it needs to grow. The fungus may depend on the decaying leaves of a particular tree. The chain of connections goes on and on, linking species together in a web that is so complex that it is almost impossible to unravel. The loss of one species can have ripple effects throughout the ecosystem, affecting species that seem to have nothing to do with the one that was lost. The indigenous peoples of the rainforest have lived with this biodiversity for thousands of years. They know the plants and animals of the forest in a way that outsiders can only begin to understand. They have names for thousands of species, and they know their uses, their behaviors, their relationships. The knowledge of indigenous peoples is a treasure that is as valuable as the biodiversity itself, a record of human interaction with the natural world that has been accumulated over countless generations. The biodiversity of the rainforest is under threat. Deforestation, climate change, and the expansion of human activities are causing species to disappear at a rate that has not been seen since the extinction of the dinosaurs. Many scientists believe that we are in the middle of a sixth mass extinction, and that the species of the rainforest are among the most vulnerable. Every year, areas of rainforest the size of small countries are cleared, and with them go species that have never been named, never been studied, never even been seen by human eyes. And yet the rainforest endures. Even in areas that have been disturbed, the forest has a remarkable ability to recover, to regrow, to reclaim what was lost. The seeds that lie dormant in the soil wait for the light to return. The saplings that grew in the shadows wait for their chance to rise. The animals that fled return when the forest grows back. The rainforest has been through changes before, and it has survived. Its biodiversity is the result of millions of years of evolution, and it is one of the most precious things on Earth, a living library of the solutions that life has found to the challenges of existence. In the rich and varied life of the rainforest, we see the beauty and the resilience of the natural world, and we are reminded of our own place within it. The rainforests of the world play a role in the climate of the entire planet. They are not isolated patches of green, separate from the systems that govern the Earth's atmosphere and temperature. They are deeply connected to the global climate, influencing rainfall patterns, temperature, and the composition of the atmosphere itself. To understand the climate, you must understand the rainforest. One of the most important things the rainforest does is store carbon. Carbon is one of the basic building blocks of life. It is in every living thing, in the leaves of trees, in the bodies of animals, in the soil beneath our feet. When plants grow, they take carbon dioxide from the atmosphere and use it to build their tissues, releasing oxygen in the process. This is called carbon sequestration, and it is one of the most important ways that the Earth regulates its climate. The trees of the rainforest are extraordinarily good at storing carbon. A single large tree can hold as much carbon as a small car produces in a year. When you multiply that by the billions of trees that cover the rainforest, the amount of carbon stored is enormous. The Amazon rainforest alone holds more than 100 billion tons of carbon, which is equivalent to more than 10 years of global fossil fuel emissions. This carbon is locked away in the trunks, branches, leaves, and roots of the trees, kept out of the atmosphere where it would contribute to global warming. When rainforests are cut down or burned, this stored carbon is released back into the atmosphere. The trees that once held the carbon are gone, and the carbon that was locked away in their tissues is released as carbon dioxide. Deforestation is one of the largest sources of greenhouse gas emissions in the world, accounting for about 10% of global emissions. When a rainforest burns, it releases not only the carbon stored in the trees, but also the carbon stored in the soil, which can take decades or even centuries to recover. The rainforest also influences the climate through its role in the water cycle. The trees of the rainforest release enormous amounts of water vapor into the atmosphere through transpiration. This water vapor rises, cools, and forms clouds, which then release rain. The rainforest generates much of its own rainfall, and it also generates rainfall for regions far beyond its borders. The water vapor that rises from the Amazon, for example, is carried by the wind across South America, providing rainfall for agriculture in countries like Brazil, Argentina, and Uruguay. The rainforest is a kind of water pump, moving moisture from the ocean to the interior of the continent and creating rainfall that sustains ecosystems and human communities alike. The clouds that form over the rainforest also help to regulate the Earth's temperature. Clouds reflect sunlight back into space, keeping the planet cooler than it would be without them. The more clouds there are, the more sunlight is reflected, and the cooler the Earth remains. By generating clouds, the rainforest helps to moderate the global temperature, acting as a natural air conditioner for the planet. Rainforests affect the climate in more subtle ways as well. The dark leaves of the rainforest absorb sunlight, warming the air above them and creating the updrafts that drive the weather systems of the tropics. The roughness of the forest canopy creates turbulence in the atmosphere, mixing the air and helping to distribute heat and moisture. The rainforest is not a passive participant in the climate system. It is an active force, shaping the weather and the climate in ways that we are only beginning to understand. The loss of rainforest has a direct impact on local and regional climates. When a rainforest is cleared, the land that remains is drier and hotter than the forest that was there before. The soil loses its moisture more quickly, and the temperature at the surface rises. In areas where large amounts of rainforest have been cleared, rainfall has decreased and the dry season has become longer. The forest that once created its own rain is replaced by a landscape that is more vulnerable to drought. There is a point of no return for rainforests, a threshold beyond which they can no longer sustain themselves. Scientists call this the tipping point. For the Amazon, the tipping point is thought to be around 20 to 25% deforestation. Beyond this point, the rainforest would no longer be able to generate enough rainfall to support itself. It would begin to dry out, and the remaining forest would gradually be replaced by a drier, more open landscape similar to a savanna. This would be a catastrophic loss, not just for the species that live in the Amazon, but for the global climate as a whole. Rainforests are sometimes called the lungs of the earth, but this metaphor is not quite accurate. The rainforest does produce oxygen, but it consumes about the same amount through respiration. The net contribution of the rainforest to the Earth's oxygen supply is small. What the rainforest does, that is far more important, is store carbon and regulate the water cycle. These functions are essential to the stability of the global climate, and they cannot be replaced by any technology that humans have devised. The relationship between rainforests and climate is a two-way street. Rainforests influence the climate, and the climate influences rainforests. As the earth warms, rainforests face new challenges. Higher temperatures can stress trees, making them more vulnerable to drought and disease. Changes in rainfall patterns can disrupt the water cycle that the forest depends on. In a warming world, the rainforests themselves are at risk, and if they are lost, the warming will only accelerate. There is a profound lesson in the connection between rainforests and climate. The Earth's systems are linked in ways that are complex and delicate. What happens in one place affects what happens in another. The trees of the Amazon are connected to the rainfall in the American Midwest and the temperature of the Arctic. The health of the rainforest is the health of the planet, and the fate of the rainforest is the fate of the Earth itself. In the quiet of the forest, among the towering trees and the falling rain, you can feel this connection, this deep and ancient bond between the living world and the climate that sustains it. When the sun goes down over the rainforest, the world changes. The light fades quickly in the tropics, where there is no long twilight to ease the transition from day to night. The sun drops below the horizon, and within minutes the forest is dark, a darkness so deep and so complete that it seems almost solid. The colors of the day, the greens and browns and bright flashes of flowers and birds, drain away into shades of gray and black. The rainforest at night is a different world, a world of shadows and sounds and creatures that only emerge after the light has gone. The transition from day to night happens first in the canopy. The birds that have been active all day begin to settle down, finding safe places to roost for the night. Their calls become quieter, more sporadic, and then stop altogether. The monkeys find their sleeping trees, curling up in the branches in family groups. The howler monkeys, which called so loudly in the morning, fall silent. In the canopy, the day shift is ending, and the night shift is about to begin. As the last light fades from the sky, the first sounds of the night begin. The crickets start to chirp, at first a few tentative notes, then a steady chorus that fills the air. The tree frogs begin to call, their voices rising from the leaves and branches where they have been hiding during the day. The chorus builds slowly, adding layer upon layer of sound, until the night air is thick with the music of the nocturnal world. Bats emerge from their roosts as darkness falls. They stream out from caves, hollow trees, and the undersides of large leaves, spreading out across the forest in search of food. There are hundreds of species of bats in the rainforest, and they play a crucial role in the ecosystem. Some eat insects, consuming enormous numbers of mosquitoes and other pests. Others eat fruit, dispersing seeds as they fly through the forest. Still others drink nectar, pollinating flowers as they feed. The bats of the rainforest are among the most important animals in the forest, and they do their work in the darkness, unseen by most. Fruit bats, also called flying foxes, are among the largest bats in the rainforest. Their wingspans can reach 4 feet or more, and they fly through the forest with a slow, deliberate wing beat, carrying fruit from one tree to another. They have large eyes and excellent night vision, and they navigate by sight rather than by echolocation. Watching a fruit bat fly through the moonlit forest is like watching a shadow come to life, a dark shape that moves with a silent, graceful purpose. The ocelot begins its hunt as the sun goes down. This small, spotted cat is one of the most beautiful predators in the rainforest, its coat marked with rosettes and stripes that provide perfect camouflage in the dappled light of the forest floor. The ocelot moves silently through the undergrowth, its padded feet making no sound on the leaf litter. It hunts for small mammals, birds, snakes, and fish, using its keen eyesight and hearing to locate its prey. In the darkness, the ocelot is almost invisible, a ghost that passes through the forest without leaving a trace. Night monkeys, also called owl monkeys, are among the few truly nocturnal primates. Their large eyes are adapted for seeing in low light, and they move through the canopy with a quiet agility that is different from the bold swinging of their daytime cousins. Night monkeys live in small family groups and feed on fruit, leaves, and insects. They are shy and elusive, and they are rarely seen, even by the people who live in the rainforest. Their calls, soft hoots and grunts, are one of the characteristic sounds of the rainforest night. Fireflies begin to appear as the darkness deepens. Their lights flash in the darkness, tiny signals that blink on and off in patterns that are specific to each species. The males flash to attract females, and the females flash back in response. In some parts of the rainforest, the fireflies are so numerous that the forest seems to be filled with floating lights, a living constellation that drifts through the trees. The light of a firefly is cold light, produced without heat, and it has a quality that seems almost magical in the darkness. The moon, when it is visible, casts a pale light through the canopy. The light filters down through the leaves in patches and shafts, creating a pattern of light and shadow that moves slowly as the moon crosses the sky. In the moonlight, the forest looks different, more mysterious, more ancient. The trunks of the trees glow silver, and the leaves shine with a soft, reflected light. The sounds of the forest continue, undiminished, as if the moonlight itself has given voice to the creatures of the night. Caimans lie in the shallow waters of rivers and streams, their eyes just above the surface, reflecting the light of the moon or the stars. They are patient hunters, waiting for a fish or a bird or a small mammal to come within reach. The eyes of the caiman glow red in the darkness, two small points of light that drift slowly across the surface of the water. In the blackwater rivers of the rainforest, where the water is stained dark by tannins, the caimans are almost invisible, their bodies hidden beneath the surface. The night air is cooler than the air of the day, but it is still warm, still heavy with moisture. The scent of the forest changes at night, becoming richer and more complex. The sweet smell of flowers that open only at night drifts through the air, attracting the moths and bats that pollinate them. The earthy smell of the forest floor is stronger, more present, as the cool air holds the moisture and the scent of decaying leaves close to the ground. In the deepest part of the night, in the hours before dawn, the forest seems to hold its breath. The sounds are softer, more distant. The creatures of the night are winding down their activities, and the creatures of the day are still asleep. There is a brief period, just before the first light appears in the sky, when the rainforest is nearly silent. It is a moment of profound stillness, a pause in the endless cycle of activity that defines the life of the forest. Then the first birds begin to stir. A single note, tentative and clear, breaks the silence. Another joins it, and another, and within minutes, the dawn chorus has begun. The light returns, slowly at first, then with increasing speed. The colors of the forest begin to reappear: the green of the leaves, the blue of the sky, the red and yellow of the flowers. The rainforest wakes from its night of shadows and sounds, and a new day begins, as it has billions of times before, in the patient and endless rhythm of the natural world. As our story slowly comes to an end, allow the final thoughts to fade. Gently into the quiet of the night, the rain and the calm ideas and the peaceful moments we've explored can settle softly in the background like distant echoes of a quiet evening. There is no need to think about anything now. Your body can continue to relax, breathing slow and steady. If you are still awake, simply remain here a little longer and enjoy the calm atmosphere. And if sleep has already started to find you, let it arrive naturally and without effort. Thank you for spending this quiet moment here on Cozy Sleep Time. If you enjoy these calm stories and gentle explorations, you can return anytime for another peaceful journey into rest. For now, let the night grow quieter and quieter and quieter, and allow yourself to drift deeper into sleep. Good night.